Tonight, violent storms, record-breaking heat, and that wildfire smoke coming back with a vengeance. More than 20 million people in the bullseye of this pre-summer slam. Strong winds, heavy rain, and hail battering the South just hours after a string of violent tornadoes tore through the region. Triple-digit heat stifling millions across Texas, with fears the power grid won't be able to hold up. And air quality alerts in effect across the Midwest, where that toxic smoke from the Canadian wildfires is heading next. Also breaking tonight, an emergency situation unfolding at the Denver Nuggets championship parade. A police officer struck by a fire truck and rushed to the hospital. 2 people shot, the shooter still at large. With nearly 1 million people crowding the city streets, the chaotic images coming in late today. An NBC News exclusive, Richard Engel sitting down with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy. What he's revealing about the long-awaited counteroffensive and the new warning tonight about the threat of nuclear disaster. The new case against Cosby, 9 women filing a lawsuit against disgraced actor and comedian Bill Cosby decades after they allege he sexually assaulted them. The new law giving them their day in court after all these years, and what they're telling NBC's Kate Snow about the decision to come forward. Runaway cop and Orlando police officer refusing to pull over for a traffic stop, leading a sheriff's deputy on a high-speed chase. The heated confrontation then captured on body cam, and the charges he's now facing. Overseas, fleeing the flames, dozens of students forced to rappel down the side of a building after it caught fire, what they used to get themselves to safety. And oh, so boring, the surprising new side effect of Ozempic tonight. Why one of the scientists who helped develop the weight loss drug is warning it could cause your life to become, quote, miserably boring. Top story starts right now. Hey, good evening. Tonight, hail, heat, and haze wreaking havoc from the Midwest all the way down through the South. 20 million people under severe weather alerts at this hour. And for many, no relief is in sight. Powerful storms tearing through Jacksonville, Florida, packing strong winds and blinding rain and hail. That same system overnight sending these baseball-sized chunks of hail flying into people's backyards and damaging their cars in Arkansas. Look at that. In Texas, a dangerous heat wave is settling in tonight. Temperatures already soaring into the triple digits, while the mayor of Houston is warning the fragile power grid may not be able to keep up as residents switch on their air conditioners. And the Midwest now choked with the smoke from the Canadian wildfires. The Minneapolis skyline, look at that, starting to look like those eerie orange images we saw just here in New York City last week. In a moment, we'll show you exactly where that toxic cloud is heading next and just how bad it's expected to be this time. But we begin first down south with Sam Brock, who leads us off tonight.
On the heels of a tornado outbreak, another round of severe weather relentlessly rocking the country again from the Central Plains to the southeast. New storms breaking out in Florida and Oklahoma, where residents felt the force of high winds and hail, which in the last 24 hours doled out a jaw-dropping output. Hail coming down in buckets on this person's boat west of Little Rock, Arkansas, putting a basketball-sized dent in the hood of this car and thrashing the windows of several other vehicles. The medley of stormy strikes keeping more than 20 million in a severe weather zone that's already produced at least 10 reported twisters across 3 states, including Texas, where this building in Cass County had its side sheared off, and a couple states over in Warrior, Alabama, uprooting these massive trees. The weather picture as a whole going from wind and hail to heat hell in Texas. The city's emergency operations centers keeping a close eye on conditions and taking the rare step of deploying a heat emergency plan in mid-June, not July or August.
We're looking at approximately 10 days of over 100 degrees.
That spawned a quick rush to get some 350 air conditioning units to Houston area seniors like David Diaz, a 70-year-old Air Force veteran.
Hot. I was sweating.
Who was relying on a single fan to stay cool. This heat wave also reigniting concerns about Texas's aging electrical grid, ERCOT, which has never failed during a heat wave, but has experienced mass fatal disruptions during snowstorms.
How much faith do you have in ERCOT's electrical grid?
Shall we pray now or pray later? I don't have a great deal of faith. I'm just being very direct. I hope for the best, but the system hasn't been fixed yet.
All right, with that, Sam Brock joins us tonight live from Houston. Sam, we'll get to that power grid in just a minute, though. Southeast Alabama and northwest parts of Florida still experiencing power outages. That heat is coming. What's the latest there?
Yeah, it's the Big Bend area of Florida, Tom. Right now, you're looking at about 15,000 customers with no power in Alabama. It's 21,000, most of those in hard-hit Butler County. Now, when you look at the full span of customers in those two states, 11 million in Florida, 2 million in Alabama. We're only talking about a fraction, but still, for those communities in heats that are 90-degree, or communities, I should say, that are seeing 90-degree plus temperatures, that is certainly a devastating circumstance to find yourself in.
And then, Sam, let's pick up there about Houston. ERCOT, the operators of Texas Electrical Grid, has struggled in the past to handle demand during extreme weather, whether it be cold or hot. What have they said about the grid's reliability during this heat wave?
Yeah, it's a great question. The expectations from ERCOT that they could see a peak all-time demand usage reached in this heat wave in the next 10 days. But the reality, Tom, is that that happened 11 times last year. And all of those times, energy was still delivered reliably. Now, as far as the context here, it was a snowstorm in 2021 that temporarily created disruptions that affected lives, killed people. Also a fatal situation back in 2011 as well. But heat has never been the culprit of widespread disruptions. They don't want it to start now. And at the moment, there's 7,000 megawatts of available energy. That is a lot for this community right now.
All right, Sam Brock, just off the grid there for us tonight here on Top Story. Sam, we appreciate it. The threat of severe storms in the south not over yet. Let's get right over to Bill Cairns. And Bill, we should actually expand this, right? I'm seeing some action there in the Plain States as well.
Tom, in the last 15 minutes, I've heard of a tornado that has done damage in Sandusky, Ohio, Sandusky County, Ohio. And I've also heard about multiple structures destroyed in the northern portion of Texas up here around Perrytown. That's that little red icon you're seeing here. There's a tornado that has been associated with this line of storms. We've been keeping track of this huge supercell, though, this one in areas from Oklahoma. It went through Lawton, had baseball-sized hail, and it's had periodically tornadoes with it. So that's this storm we're watching. It's probably the most powerful in the country right now. It's going to be approaching Interstate 35 in the Ardmore area. It's also another storm starting to fire up that will be near you in Wichita Falls. Give it probably another half hour or so. This storm's had a lot of rotation. Anywhere you see the dark purple is likely baseball to at least maybe tennis ball size hail. And this is where the tornado is likely located, in between Eureka and Ryan, right in here. And that'll be heading due east over a rural area over the next couple of minutes. So as far as the severe outlook goes, the areas that we're really focusing on is going to be this red bullseye. That's where all the big storms I just showed you. And these storms will all be heading down towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area as we go throughout the rest of this evening. So that's why you have to have your heads up there. And you can talk to anyone in Central and North Texas. It was as hot as could be and extremely humid today. And that's all the fuel for these storms as we go throughout the evening. And these little hash blue lines, pretty rare. We don't get these too often. This is where we're calling for hurricane force wind gusts with these thunderstorms. Not everyone's going to get it. But if you get in the middle of one of these supercell thunderstorms, like I just pointed out, you could have power outages, wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour. And those tornado watches for areas of Oklahoma and Texas go until 10 o'clock local time this evening.
Going to be a wild night of weather. All right, Bill Cairns first. Bill, we appreciate that. And as millions of Americans are at risk for severe storms in the south, we're also monitoring the Canadian wildfires yet again and the impact on air quality in the U.S. This was the scene in Milwaukee earlier today as wildfire smog blanketed the city skyline. And now that polluted air is on the move again. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now from Chicago, where the air quality has been unhealthy. But Maggie, your skies are looking a little more clear than what we saw in New York City.
Yeah, Tom, definitely. And we should say the smoke is unfortunately headed back your way in the near future. More on that here in a second. But as you said, Chicagoans breathing a lot easier than they were this morning. In fact, today, the air quality index earlier today was in the 90s here. That's about twice where it should be. We've all unfortunately become pretty familiar with that index and that system over the last couple of days. Also, you showed Milwaukee. I want to show you parts of Minneapolis and kind of that area as well, Duluth, Minnesota. They have been hit hard these last couple of days. They saw their worst air quality index ever yesterday. And you can see the smog and the smoke was so thick there just as recently as today. Again, it's all moving east now, though, as we speak. And unfortunately, Tom, we know what you all went through on the East Coast last week. You could be in for something experts say of a repeat performance, that they say it's not going to be as bad as it was last week in all likelihood. But that smoke is set to roll in tonight into tomorrow morning.
All right, Maggie, that's bad news for us here in the Northeast. I do want to ask you, because this is sort of stunning, and I don't think our viewers know this. These Canadian wildfires are going to burn for a long time, and this is an issue we're going to have to monitor for the months ahead.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We're not even in meteorological summer at this point, and Canadian officials have essentially said that this will last, I mean, to put it bluntly, for a while. But they put out a press release last week saying that they obviously have fires burning. We've been covering this from Vancouver, BC, over to Quebec, and they essentially say that with the heat and the dryness of the summer and the size and the strength of these fires, and by the way, this wind is what's helping us here in Chicago with the smoke rolling out, with the size and the strength of these fires in Canada, Canadian officials say this fight will likely last them all summer. So think about what that could mean for everybody to the south who's already been blanketed with smoke. Tom?
All right, Maggie Vespa for us. Maggie, we appreciate it. Now to some breaking news we're following out of Denver. Chaos erupting during the Nuggets championship parade. A police officer struck by a fire truck that was carrying some of the players, and at least 2 people shot in a separate incident. Steve Patterson has the latest.
Tonight, chaos in downtown Denver after a shooting erupts near crowds of thousands celebrating the Nuggets championship win. Police say the shots rang out shortly after the team's victory parade. An unidentified male suspect firing, striking 2 people. The chief telling reporters all involved likely knew each other.
And we had a black male firing a weapon, striking 2 individuals. We believe that this was a targeted incident.
Medical officials say 2 people were injured, both in serious condition. Authorities say the shooter is still at large.
I think in our investigative ability to ultimately identify that person and bring that person to justice.
Meanwhile, in a separate incident, a veteran Denver police officer was injured after a fire truck rolled over his leg during the parade. Officials calling it limb-threatening.
There were people that had kind of made their way into the street, and he was sort of trying to protect those individuals from the fire truck.
Today's parade shooting is the second this week. On Monday, 10 people were injured in a shooting after the Nuggets finals win. Police characterizing Monday's incident as a drug deal gone wrong.
And here we are again having to talk about someone endangering the lives of people who came to celebrate.
A week of mile-high jubilation marred by violence.
All right, Steve Patterson, though, joining us live as well from L.A. tonight on this story. Steve, we heard there that the suspected gunman in that shooting is still at large tonight. What's the latest on the manhunt?
Yeah, Tom, at the very latest news conference, the chief again said that several cameras were active during the shooting and that they already have a picture of the suspect. He says at this point, it's an investigation with confidence of a swift capture. Tom?
And Steve, I want to ask you about that police officer. It was a horrific injury. The video was kind of tough to watch. What have we learned about him and how's he doing?
Yeah, Tom, first I want to make this clear. This was a decorated veteran officer assigned to the SWAT division who used his body to shield people in that crowd from injury. Tonight, emergency room doctors say he is in stable condition, but they are worried he may very well lose that leg.
Oh, Tom, that's horrible news. Okay, Steve Patterson on that breaking news out of Denver. We want to turn to an NBC News exclusive tonight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy speaking about the new offensive against Russia. He tells our Richard Engel that this stage of the war is proving to be very difficult, stressing the continued need for allied and American support across the political spectrum.
Ukraine tonight is in a full-scale fight to take back Russian-occupied land.
Hi, Richard. Good to see you again. How are you?
A pivotal moment for our interview with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the presidential compound in Kyiv.
This must be a very critical time for you.
Critical and very busy.
For over a year, Ukraine has been fighting successfully to defend itself. Now, going on the offensive to break through Russian front lines is proving to be challenging.
We are now in the early days of this long-anticipated counteroffensive. How's it going?
I cannot give you all the details. There are both defensive and offensive actions. Things look not bad. I would say it's generally positive, but it's difficult. Our heroic people, our troops, who are now at the front of the front line, are facing very tough resistance. And you understand why. Because for Russia to lose this campaign to Ukraine I would say actually means losing the war.
President Zelenskyy also had a dire warning. He blamed Russia for blowing up a dam, which Russia denies, flooding dozens of villages, and tells us the next Russian target is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Russia does want to blow up the station.
Why would they want to do that?
Because, like with the dam, they are not interested in Ukraine's security. They always need instability here and want the world to pressure Ukraine to stop the conflict.
He says Russia is getting desperate as more Western military aid is coming. Today, the U.S. and other allies agreed to train Ukrainian pilots to operate F-16s, but it's still unclear when they'll arrive and how many.
You've been talking about planes since day one. I remember seeing you the very early days of the war in this building, in the basement. Now they're somewhere in the pipeline. What has been the effect of having weapons rolled out like this, given slice by slice over time?
It's prolonged the war. If we are supplied with the machinery that is currently held by our partners, we will win faster.
In many ways, this country's very survival depends on the assistance of the United States, other allies, and several Republican presidential candidates are expressing concerns about support for Ukraine. What would you say to them?
What would I say? Is any candidate or senator who thinks it costs too much for the United States to support Ukraine, is he ready to go to war, to fight, to send his kids? Are they ready to die? Because anyway, they will have to do this if NATO gets involved. And anyway, if Ukraine would lose, if Russia would occupy Ukraine, Russia will continue going towards Baltic countries, Poland, etc. They will start war with one of the NATO countries. And at this moment, the United States will have to choose the collapse of NATO or go to war.
And Tom, one thing that struck me was that President Zelenskyy said, yes, they're fighting Russian troops. They're fighting them in this country, on the ground. It's a tough fight. But he said they are keeping one eye on the United States political situation. And I asked him, do you feel like you're fighting on a U.S. timeline? Is that imposed on you? And he said, yes. And I hadn't heard a wartime leader say that kind of thing, that they're fighting their enemy, but they have to also adhere to the political time frame imposed by their key allies. It may be true in many conflicts around the world, but it's rare that you hear somebody say it so openly. And I think it shows also how dependent this country really is on the flow of weapons, the flow of money, the support of political support from the United States. Tom?
How reliant they are on the American help. Okay, Richard Engel, great interview. Next, actor and comedian Bill Cosby is facing a new sexual assault lawsuit. 9 women have filed a civil suit in Nevada accusing him of sexual misconduct that dates back decades. It comes just weeks after a new law was signed in the state that eliminates the statute of limitations for such cases. NBC's Kate Snow got an exclusive interview with 6 of the accusers.
Tonight, a new chapter in the legal saga of Bill Cosby.
Our tummy needs some yummy, right?
Accusers aiming a fresh lawsuit at the comedian after years of battling to have their stories heard.
Why are you filing suit? To take back my power.
It's time for him to be responsible for his actions.
Culpability, justice.
The lawsuit, filed by 9 women, says Cosby drugged or attempted to drug each of these women before sexually assaulting them in either Reno or Las Vegas. Several women alleging Cosby assaulted them in his suite at a Vegas hotel.
We started out small and frightened and scared. And through the years and through the support of everyone, I think we're all a force to be reckoned with.
It's a new legal avenue some of those same women actually helped create.
He insisted that I have 2 drinks, and within a few minutes I became dizzy and disoriented.
Accuser Lisa Lott Lublin lives in Nevada and teaches middle school. She and her husband Ben have spent 8 years lobbying to change state laws around sexual assault.
We said we got to do this because honestly, I didn't see it for myself. I saw it for these incredible women that are on this video. And I saw it for the children that I teach.
Then other Cosby accusers joined her, testifying before the state legislature.
I was raped when I lived in Reno.
Lobbying for a new law that would allow any adult alleging sexual assault to file a civil suit no matter how long ago the incident happened.
Ready?
2 weeks ago, Lublin was there when Nevada's governor signed it into law.
What these laws changing means is that perpetrators can no longer hide behind an arbitrary time limit called the statute of limitations, that victims, plaintiffs will be able to present our evidence, our testimonies, and our witnesses in a court of law, no matter how much time has passed.
That law enabled their new lawsuit.
I didn't expect this to be the outcome. And it's kind of like, is this really happening?
Their suit seeks compensatory and punitive damages.
This is an incredibly powerful group of women right here.
I first met these 6 women when I interviewed a group of 27 Cosby accusers in one room in 2015.
The conversation needs to be had.
In 2018, Bill Cosby was convicted of indecent assault, but 3 years later, Pennsylvania's Supreme Court overturned his conviction. The court found Cosby was denied protection against self-incrimination.
I'm still angry, and that right there is why I'm part of this suit. And I know that people are going to say, oh yeah, sure, you got the law changed, and now you're after his money. I can promise you, many, if not most of us, never planned on doing this. This is the only recourse I have left.
Cosby has long denied all allegations of sexual abuse. Reacting to the new Nevada lawsuit, Cosby spokesman Andrew Wyatt accused the women of being motivated by their addiction to massive amounts of media attention and greed. And Wyatt said, from this day forward, we will not continue to allow these women to parade various accounts against Mr. Cosby anymore without vetting them in the court of public opinion and inside of the courtroom. The women are seeking a jury trial, in part, they say, to help other survivors.
Look at all of us now. It's never, ever too late to take our lives back and to get the justice every single one of us deserves. And we're living proof of that.
You don't feel human unless you fight back. In some way, there has to be a fight. And when you've been drugged, you never even got the chance to fight. And I didn't get the chance to fight for over 25 years. There's nothing more empowering than trying to take back your control.
You're all fighting now.
Together.
And with that, Kate Snow joins us now in studio. Kate, I want to pick up there where Lisa Lott Lublin left off. What a journey for her, right? Mm-hmm. She says she was attacked by Bill Cosby, and it took her years to lobby and change the law, and now she's here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 8 years since I've known her and since she started lobbying, not just for the current law that we were talking about, but some previous ones, like changing the statute of limitations for children who were making allegations of sexual assault. So for her personally and for all these women, I think this has been a long journey. I also think you have to think about they found their voices, they came out, they supported Andrea Constand. She got a criminal conviction, and then that was overturned 3 years later. And these women felt shocked. I talked to them at the time, and now they feel like this path of states changing the law and being able to file civil suits may, they think, be their path forward toward justice.
And going back to Bill Cosby, we heard about these cases in Nevada, but there are still other lawsuits?
Right. This one case in Nevada and a suit in New York where 5 women have sued, including Lily Bernard, who was one of the women you saw in Nevada. Bernard also filed a suit in New Jersey. Another woman separately sued Cosby in California. As we've noted, Cosby has no criminal convictions. He was found civilly liable, Tom, for molesting a 16-year-old back in 1975.
Okay, Kate Snow with us. Kate, we appreciate that. We want to head to Mexico now, where authorities have confirmed the deaths of 2 Americans at a luxury hotel, while an investigation is still underway. Police suspect the California couple died of gas poisoning. NBC national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has this one.
The bodies were discovered at this exclusive upscale resort in Cabo San Lucas. Abby Lutz and her boyfriend, who lived in California, found unresponsive in their room by hotel staff. Mexican police in the seaside community suspect the cause of death is inhalation of gas.
She got really sick and they thought it was food poisoning.
Lutz's family says the couple started feeling ill after they arrived at Rancho Pescadero and headed to the hospital.
They spent the night and with IVs, getting IVs and things, and then they felt better. When they went to bed, I guess they didn't wake up.
On GoFundMe, the family writes, "We have been told it was due to improper venting of the resort and could be carbon monoxide poisoning."
I think that's the hardest part, is going to a resort that you think you're going to be taken care of at, and it was just so senseless.
At Rancho Pescadero, where the rooms can cost up to $1,000 a night, the hotel owned by Hyatt says, out of an abundance of caution and respect for the families and all of those affected, we are refraining from speculation about the cause. The deaths, the latest in a string of similar accidents in Mexico.
Last October, after renting an upscale apartment, 3 Americans appeared to have died from carbon monoxide poisoning in Mexico City. In 2018, a couple and their 2 children also lost their lives in Tulum.
We love her, her family, all her friends. We'll miss her so much.
Tonight, the hallmarks of another preventable tragedy for a young couple on vacation.
Tom, Abby Lutz's family says they're still working to bring her home. She planned to spend this weekend with her dad for Father's Day. Now the family is planning her funeral. Tom?
Oh, so terrible. All right, Miguel Almaguer, still ahead tonight. This is just in. Shocking allegations against UFC legend Conor McGregor. A Miami Heat fan accusing him of sexually assaulting her during an NBA championship game. The response from McGregor tonight, plus the Orlando police officer refusing to pull over for a traffic stop, leading to a high-speed chase. Now he's finding himself on the other side of the law. And another Megxit? Spotify reportedly parting ways with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. What it means for the multi-million-dollar deal they had with the company. Stay with us. Okay, and we've got a story out of Florida with some wild video. A police officer is now fired and in legal trouble after leading another officer on a high-speed chase. He was pulled over, then fled the scene. NBC's Valerie Castro has the play-by-play of that shocking encounter.
Tonight, a high-speed chase of a Florida police officer.
Over 100 miles an hour trying to catch up with this butthead.
Trying to catch one of his own, clocking him at nearly double the speed limit in a marked car.
You going to pull over?
Please say a command.
Pull over.
A Seminole County deputy eventually making the traffic stop.
What? I am going into work, my man. Why are you trying to pull me over as I'm going into work?
Because you're going 80 and a 45.
I am going into work.
Okay, where are you going to work?
What does it look like I am dressed for? What does it look like I am dressed for?
The conversation coming to a dead end.
My name is Deputy Hilton, and they see your driver's license.
No.
The Orlando officer, Alexander Showney, who left the scene, was later charged with reckless driving and eluding the county deputy, who even engaged his emergency lights and sirens during the chase, according to the county incident report. Orlando police saying in a statement, Officer Showney now relieved of his duties pending a criminal and internal investigation. Attempts to reach the officer went unanswered, but a friend who spoke with him telling NBC News, quote, he's repentant, he's sorry for what he did. Another repentant officer of the law, Tampa Police Chief Mary O'Connor, flashing her badge in December after the golf cart her husband was driving was pulled over outside a residential community for no license plate.
Is your camera on?
It is.
I'm the police chief in Tampa.
Oh, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay.
I'm hoping that you'll just let us go tonight.
Later calling the move poor judgment and handing in her resignation at the mayor's request. In Oklahoma City,
Drunk?
No, the captain.
Captain James Matt French was arrested in March on suspicion of drunk driving.
How much we had to drink tonight, sir?
Repeatedly asking the arresting officer to turn off his body camera video.
Please. Huh?
Turn that off.
I cannot, sir.
Please.
I know you're aware of our body cam policy.
French now on leave with pay pending criminal and internal investigations. In all 3 cases, the bad behavior eventually catching up with consequences. We asked the Orlando Police Department if that officer was in fact on his way to work as he told that deputy, but they did not answer that question. Tom?
It is a good question. All right, Valerie Castro for us. When we come back, the explosion investigation, a massive plume of smoke captured on camera in San Jose. What's behind those trees that actually sparked the blaze? We'll explain. are back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the government agencies hit in a massive global cyber attack. Cybersecurity officials saying hackers gained access to data from multiple U.S. federal agencies using a weakness in a popular file transfer software. Details on which agencies were involved have not yet been released. The director of the U.S.'s cybersecurity agency telling MSNBC it is still investigating the scope of the attack, but does not expect any significant impacts. An investigation is underway into a massive warehouse fire in San Jose. Videos showing the moments of public storage facility exploding. Thick smoke billowing from the side of the blaze, visible from miles away. Residents nearby reporting they heard multiple blasts. Luckily, no one was hurt. New condos may be coming to the site of the devastating Surfside collapse. Plans were submitted today for a new 12-story luxury building nearly 2 years after that collapse killed 98 people. A developer purchased the land for $120 million last year, but the Surfside Planning Commission will need to approve the plans before building can begin. And Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's $20 million deal with Spotify, you may remember that, it's reportedly coming to an end. Multiple outlets reporting the audio company is not renewing Markle's podcast Archetypes, and the pair will not receive the full payout from their original deal amid concerns they're not producing enough content. NBC has reached out to representatives for the Sussexes and Spotify. We have not heard back just yet. Okay, now to a surprising warning that caught our attention from the scientist whose discovery led to the blockbuster drug Ozempic. Nearly 40 years ago, Dr. Johns Jewel Holst discovered the hormone GLP-1 that Ozempic mimics. This week, in an interview with Wired magazine, Dr. Holst is claiming, quote, "You don't eat through GLP-1 therapy because you've lost interest in food. That may eventually be a problem. That once you've been on this for a year or two, life is so miserably boring that you can't stand it any longer and you have to go back to your old life." NBC News medical contributor and a good friend of Top Story, Dr. Uche Blackstock, joins us now. Dr. Blackstock, feeling miserable. We've heard so much about Ozempic, right? There's been so much reporting. This is the first time hearing about this. So, like I'm a 5-year-old, explain it to me. So how does this happen if you're taking Ozempic?
Right. So essentially, this medication, it keeps you full. It decreases all those cravings you have for food, ice cream, all that good stuff. And so you essentially feel full all the time and you eat less. That's how you lose weight. That's how your diabetes resolves itself.
So you have a beautiful dinner set with all your friends and you get to the dinner table and you haven't eaten anything, but you already feel full.
Yeah, you already feel full, and you may pick a little bit at whatever is on the dinner table, but you really won't feel like eating much. You almost have an aversion to food. It almost feels like you just don't want to have any of it. And so this is the problem because, you want these people on the medication for a while, but after 1 to 2 years of feeling this way, a lot of patients may want to discontinue it.
And he predicts that as well, and he's been obviously working with the drug for a long time. What happens when people get off it?
So when they get off it, what happens is they end up gaining the weight back again.
But that's the part I don't understand, because do you not develop a habit? I mean, they say after, 2 weeks you develop a habit. I mean, do they not?
So the medication is given usually weekly, and you have to keep taking it. Weekly. It's a maintenance medication.
Right.
So once you stop taking it and it wears off and it's out of your system, the effects of it go away. So essentially, you get those cravings again, you start eating like you were eating before, and probably over weeks to months, you end up gaining the weight back, and you may even develop diabetes again.
We've reported a lot about the cost of Ozempic, right? If you don't get a prescription for this, it costs a lot of money. Insurance is not covering it. Most people can't afford it, but the people that can, what is happening with the price? Because sometimes when drugs come to market, other drugs, companies figure it out, they mimic it, and they offer a better price. Is that happening with Ozempic?
So not yet. It's about $1,000 a month for Ozempic and Wegovy. So Wegovy is the one that's approved for weight loss, but there are other medications, other GLP-1 medications that are out, like Mounjaro. It's also the same cost.
Yeah.
But even others are on the market and researched. And I think that prices are probably going to go down as the demand increases, because people see this as a quick fix. You give yourself a shot and you lose weight over weeks to months.
You're a doctor, and I feel like Ozempic has sort of kind of been here now for maybe about a year and a half, and we've covered it a lot. I'm sure you've seen it with patients. What are you seeing, and sort of What more are we learning? Because I feel like every 3 months we sort of learn like something else about the drug.
Well, it's pretty well tolerated. The most common side effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and constipation. But people should be aware that they can develop pancreatitis, that's inflammation of the pancreas. And there is a rare type of thyroid cancer that can develop also
But there's
over
some people
time.
that don't have these side effects, right?
Right. There's some people, most people tolerate it very, very well.
Most do.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the nausea vomiting actually resolves after a few weeks on it.
What about the issues of muscle loss? Because I've heard that too.
Yeah, so what's interesting is when you're on these medications, you have to eat a lot of protein because essentially you're starving yourself. And what's going to happen is you'll lose fat, but you'll also lose protein, and that's in your muscle. So you have to make sure that you're eating enough muscle for your size so that you don't also lose that lean muscle mass as well.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Blackstock, great to have you. We've missed you. Good seeing you again. Thanks for all the info. Coming up next, fleeing the flames, we have this incredible video out of India showing students, look at this, rappelling down the side of a building that was on fire. What they used to get out, we'll explain. Back now with Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin with the horrific crash on a major Canadian highway. Authorities say a bus carrying more than 24 people collided with a semi-truck on the Trans-Canada Highway in Manitoba. At least 15 people were killed and about 10 others injured. Authorities revealing most of the people on the bus were seniors. That highway stretches across all 10 of Canada's provinces. A massive fire breaking out at a tutoring center in India's capital. New video showing students climbing out of windows, look at this, to escape the flames, lowering themselves down the side of the building with loose wires. Authorities say the blaze started after an electricity meter caught fire. Luckily, everyone made it out and no one was hurt. That is incredible. And global outrage tonight after a Guatemalan court sentenced an outspoken journalist to 6 years in prison. Jose Juven Zamora was convicted of money laundering in connection to a $38,000 donation made to his newspaper. Zamora, who has openly criticized the country's government, says the case against him is political persecution. He plans to appeal the decision. The U.S. called the verdict a threat to independent journalism and freedom of expression. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.